Gentlemen, welcome back from Zambia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so excited for you. First off, just give me an understanding how'd you feel about the trip? I guess just on a 1 to 10. Ronnie, I'll start with you. 1 to 10. What would you give it?
Well, I'll give it. I want to stay in the squad, so I'll give it a 9. And yeah, I'll give it a 9 too.
Okay, David, what about you?
Yeah, I was to give it a 9.
Great. And
Yeah.
give me a reason why. Ronnie, why? What was it? Let me give you your highlight. What do you think was what was a highlight for you, Ronnie?
Yeah, I think for me, really, every day was different. Like, so I would sit with David and be like, I think today was amazing. But again, when we reach tomorrow, like, the next day we're like, now this is more like this was wonderful. So we stopped actually giving, the day's numbers, like the hours did according to the percentage, and we're just anticipating what God is gonna do the next day, because every day was really different in a lot of things.
David, what about you?
So
Yeah, I would give it a 9 because of the reception that we got, because the other places that we have been going, we did not get such kind of a reception on the gospel. And even for our sake, when you trained us, it wasn't that easy for us to understand. But for these guys, when we were training out, they were getting it out. So why I'm not giving it 10 is because we still have 1% that waiting for to see if we got the right team of this.
Gotcha. So which concept do you think impacted them the most? You did 1 degree off, you did God's Looking for a Bride, you did cat and dog theology, you did a little bit of Living for Eternity. Which do you think impacted them the most? David, we'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, all of them, they were like working out well and impacting a lot. But I would say the J1 and J2 is what hit it onto them, because after this is when everybody broke down and just went on their knees and repented that they just been living for their kingdom, just here thinking of the small kingdom on earth. Every program was amazing, but J1 and J2 really brought out their heart out, and they cried out to God.
Ronnie, what about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say well, the J1 and J2 because again, we with the repentance, when they all fell down and repented, and we're like, we need something new, but also now the cat and dog, and I'll say this, this is why I think the cat and dog was outstanding, because of this one policewoman who was going to work every night and coming in the morning the whole day for the 5 full days, because we asked her, why did you come for all of these 5 days? I mean, you were staying at the night with work. She asked her uniform, and she was like, I just wanted to know what cat and dog. And when we taught cat and dog, that was the 4th day, right? So I was like, I'm so happy that I've now to know what cat and dog really means. So to me, I'll take, for this one police lady, cat and dog was outstanding. Yeah.
So you guys did a lot of things interactive, getting them to move. Which of those do you think had the biggest impact on them? And what was it? What did you do that had that impact? Ronnie?
There you are. Yeah, I think we did. I would say so. The first day, when we went in the first day, we did not know this culture. We thought that it's gonna be just like the Kenyan culture. So we were like, they were not very kind of vibrant and very receptive, very happy to. So we went back. We're like, okay, now what are we doing wrong? What are we not doing right? This is the class now that we have. And I remember we sat down with David and we're like, okay, we have got to think about something that is going to make them feel comfortable, of them able to share, and able to stand up and know, hey, this is going to be a class of sharing. So we had to go back and be like, okay, so I know we had said we're going to do drama the 3rd day, but how can we then bring drama in the 2nd day to make sure that this is going to be interactive and all that. So so we did the drama, and also we did the chair game, where these mature guys were running around And again, I'll send you the video. They're running around, trying to look for a seat. But again, this was already intended for them to share what they have learned and disciple, them right there. So we did the drama pretty soon, and yeah.
David, what about you?
I remember the 6 and 9. It was the first analogy to do. And after we were done with the day, the bishop, when we were talking afterwards, he said, I knew you guys were having an excellent material on the first thing that you did, that was 6 and 9. That was enough to tell me that the kind of material that you're bringing is quite different. And that's why I'm sitting here waiting for the second day, because I believe you are having information that we need. And he said, some of us were expecting big pastors with ties, but when we see just young men, we were like, okay, what are we waiting to be trained? But then when you did the 6 and 9, that was right for me. I was ready to hear the next of the 5 days.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I love that bishop. He seemed to be impacted. I don't know if I would say the most. Would you say the most?
Yeah, he was impacted the most, because he said that some of this material, like eternal security, he knew, but they are afraid to preach it. But afterwards, he said, for the things like cat and dog theology and veiling glory, those are some things that he had not been trained. Although he has a degree, actually masters in theology, those are kind of things that, that he has not been able to see or be trained upon. So it was he was the most impacted, I would say.
And Ronnie, did they really, I assume, latched on to maturity, trying to mature as a Christian, and instead of just praying a prayer, right?
Yes. I mean, that was also something that made sense to them. They really had no idea that they're going to be held. Well, they had some, but now when we're like, hey, you're going to be held accountable, that also brought them into repentance, because they thought it's just a game. We know we just escape from hell and just get into heaven, and that's it. But then when they heard about that God has a bigger picture, which is not just to just get saved and get into heaven. This was getting them ready. And again, no wonder why out of the 50 that we're expecting, we had 45 who constantly came for the 5 days, because they wanted to hear more and more and more. So yeah, and maturing the bride, really maturity, that was the first lesson that we did after multiplication. So yeah, it made sense why they had to come back.
Yeah. Talk about the high school girls. How do the high school girls even hear about it? How do they hear about it? And I'm just so excited that they were there.
Well, it looks like one of the girls, I think her parents was one of the person who was there. So she pulled along, the other girl to come, but they didn't have to. Okay, it's not that my mother says I have to. No, they didn't have to. I asked them, why did you come out? From school, you're from learning, and then you will see them literally running into the class, and they were like, we just wanted to learn more and more and more, because this was new. So to me, that was also very hard, very emotional when I got to hear that. These girls, they had a lot of other things to do, but they kept on coming for, I think, 4 days. Yeah.
So are people already interacting on WhatsApp?
Yes, we have people who are interacting and also asking some questions. So we are waiting for the last. There's a couple of people who have not joined, so that we can start the topics on next Monday. That's when we'll be starting now discussing each topic and knowing how they are doing with their Timothy's, so that we'll be able to understand and see who is really very angry for the material, who is doing the Timothy work. In the WhatsApp, we'll be able to understand how it's going.
And do you know, did some of them already teach it on Sunday to their churches? Did you already get any feedback from that?
Yes, like the church that I attended, the host pastor, because they end the morning service and then the main service. So in the morning service, he was teaching it. Actually, it was not like just preaching, but teaching, whereby he was talking about cat and dog theology. So he was allowing the congregants to ask questions, and he could reply. And I could get, at least he have around 75% of the information. So it was a walkthrough for me when I came up to preach, and I was doing maturing the bride. So I could see he is really angry in it, and he's giving out whatever he learned.
Ronnie, how did your Sunday morning service go? What did you teach on and how did it go?
Yeah, surely. I mean, what I taught about, again, when I read what I taught about was still, again, maturing, maturing in Christ. And again, just first of all, to get them to know who they are, because most of them, even though they got said, they have no idea that when they got said, they became children of God. So I just wanted to, first of all, lay that ground that, hey, you're a child, you're important, when you got into Christ, so your status changed. And again, now also taught about now that you're a child, this, God had bigger plans. So yeah, so that's what I taught on. But coming back to the question that you asked, after the whole service, the leaders had a meeting, but this changed my life. Then he started really them a couple of points that changed his life, and again he's saying, we will teach you slowly. So that was very encouraging that these people were intentional about teaching their now entire leadership what they have learned and what they got through the material. So that was outstanding there. Yeah.
Out of the 45, how many were pastors? How many were lay people? Do you know?
Almost like 70% of those people who are attending, they are lay pastors and church leaders.
Give me another highlight from your time there.
Just an highlight, which I think it could be a very positive thing for us, is we end our host, who was Pastor Best, requesting us if he can have this material on his theological training, and that we can be offering the material and the training via Zoom.
Wow, that's fantastic. Ron, another highlight.
Yeah, I think for me was the diversity of the group that we had, where we had women, we had now those high schoolers, we had a youth, we had a couple of them that were young, and again we had old men. So really, it was very encouraging to see that the energy is really joined together when they're doing, let's say, when they're acting out, like the dramas they acted about the J2. So you would see that they are blending in, being that they're different ages.
That's excellent. Go ahead, David. You want to add more?
So I was saying, I think one also of the most highlight was to see between 40 to 45 pastors coming every day, not missing a day. And we could find around 30 of them arriving before time. So even when we are arriving, we find them seated, talking, and they start worshiping. So you can see the anger from them, not for us waiting for them, but for them coming early. And even when we end, some of them are just there trying to ask some of questions one-on-one. And another thing also, it was good to see some of the pastors who attended, they did not come alone. They came with their maybe church leaders. And that is not what happens in Africa. You find Africa, if it's a pastor's meeting, they don't want to carry or to come along with their leaders, because they don't want to see them that maybe they don't know. So it was an encouragement to see some pastors with their leaders in the same training.
Yes, I think also one more was their honesty and sincerity. You'd hear it in their talks, when we're having discussions and asking questions, you'd hear, their vulnerability in terms of being honest. Hey, we have been doing this wrong. And I remember, I think David, was it the second day, that young guy, I think he was being trained to be a pastor. And I remember when we asked a question and he stood up and said, the problem is that you older pastors, you don't want to, to train us, to give us everything. I think that was, we're talking about multiplication, I guess. So, and this older, when he said that, these guys were not offended. They, I took it because they also responded. They're like, yes, that's true. So the talks that we're having were honest and sincere. And these guys were vulnerable enough to share, where they're struggling in. So that was also another highlight. Yeah, there.
Yeah. I remember your point, that young guy stood up and said that some of the pastors have been killing their Timothys. So we need you pastors. Yeah, we need you pastors to uphold us and help us grow too. And that was really amazing.
One final question, then we'll wrap this up. What did it do to you? What did being there and teaching in a foreign country do to you?
Well, I don't know how to put it, but it just turned the other side of me, like, this is why I was created, and this is the platform that I've been looking for. This is the altar that I've been searching for, so that I can be able to change other people. And I realized also that I'm kind of knowing the material more than I knew it. Whenever I keep on teaching, and I could say almost like 90% of the questions that were being asked out of the material, I was able to answer, and whatever I was not able to answer, we liaised with Ronnie, and we were able to give out the answer. So I would say personally, I've grown in the material and in my lifestyle, and I'm looking forward to serve God more as He gives me His grace.
Ronnie, what did it do to you?
Yeah, I mean, as I was actually going, my prayer was that I don't just want to teach. I'm like, God, I'm going. Other people go full, but I'm going empty because I want my life to still be changed and to still be. For me, I think my breaking point was more when I saw, after we are taught and these people are kneeling down and repenting. That was in my life. It really changed everything. That what a whole, well, I can say whole nation, but the words that we're speaking, which are not exciting, it's not about, hey, you're gonna be blessed, but they can touch some people to even kneel down and say, as a country, we are coming back to God. So to me, that was God telling me that, I mean, hey, I don't use the mighty, I have no theological degree or this and this, but a willing heart that is available to be used. I can use anybody. So to me, God was telling me really in that, you have not yet seen what I can do. You have really not yet seen what I can do.